Hello everybody and welcome back to another one of these videos. I just want to say a big thank you to all the new subscribers and hello, welcome to the channel. I hope you enjoy your stay. I also just want to apologize for the past 2-3 weeks. Besides being sick, I still have electricity problems, so I'm still waiting for the country to sort itself out. Will that ever happen? I don't think so, but we can hope so. So I'm still doing my best to try and make sure that I can edit as many videos as possible, and I'm gonna try and get 2 videos out this week. If I don't, I'm so sorry. Next week I will definitely try. I will be going on holiday with my family from the 16th, but I will still have scheduled videos and everything, but I'll give you guys a heads up whether it'll be 1 video or 2 videos per week. But anyway, enjoy the video and please let me know what else you'd like to hear in future. For context, there was this kid who I'll call Nicholas, who went to my school in 2018. One morning, Nicholas didn't go to school, which was out of the ordinary for him. Late in the day, news spread that Nicholas had been murdered by his mom in a murder-suicide. His death was all over the news, and really hurt our town as he was relatively liked by everyone. Now to the story. He haunts the school now. He doesn't seem to be a very aggressive spirit, but he's definitely still present. In the cafeteria bathroom, every time anyone goes in there, they feel like someone's watching them. One day when I walked into the cafeteria bathroom, the faucet randomly turned on, which can't happen on accident since the faucets require pressure to turn on. Then in the ESL room, he tends to knock things over. The ESL room is in the orchestra room, and since I'm in the orchestra, I get the going-ons of the ESL class. Frequently things fall off shelves for no apparent reason. In orchestra, I play the double bass, which means I have to put my bass in the closet every time I'm not playing to keep it safe. Every time I'm there, with the lights off, I see some shadowy figure looking at the violets with green bands. For context, again, after he died there was an orchestra ceremony for his passing, and all the instruments had green bands on, since they were his favorite color. That's all the main stories I have, but he's rather reserved, but still definitely present. Friday, 18/2022. I'm a mom of 3 children. My oldest is 2 years old, and my other daughter is 1 year old, and the youngest is my son, 6 months old. Well, today I had gotten a video chat from her dad, and he had told me some things that I'm surprised that my 2-year-old knew. Please note, me and my kid's dad are not religious. Well, my kid's dad had a video chat with me and asked if anyone had told her about the Bible or anything like that. I said no to that, and my kid's dad had asked my daughter, "Where did you learn about that?" My daughter responded to him and said, "Grandma told me that." After she responded to him, he then asked her which grandma. She replied to his question and said, "Mommy's grandma." After hearing her say that, I had her show a picture of my grandparents that had passed away, and soon as she saw the picture, she said, "That's Grandma and Granddad." My grandfather had passed away in 2013, and my grandmother had passed away in 2020. My daughter was born a few months before she died. My grandmother had gotten to meet my granddaughter when she was just a month old. When she passed away, it was during COVID. Me and her dad never explained to her who they were yet. Me and her dad were waiting for the kids to get older and then tell them. It's scary how she knew who they were and what she knew about some stuff about the Bible. Back in late January 2022, my dad died in his house, so we all kind of moved back to our mother's house. Everyone left except for my oldest brother, Jonathan. He had decided to stay there until he couldn't anymore. For context, we had a ghost in there before Dad had died called George. After my dad's funeral, Jonathan was calling my aunt to talk to her. Then she asked if my younger sister was there. He asked why, then my aunt told him she heard a young girl's voice that slowly turned into an old man's voice. She also heard my dad's voice, so that was neat. After this, my aunt found the real name of the ghost. Then Jonathan said on the way in the house, this is where all the creepy stuff started happening. After this, anytime he turned on the kitchen lights, he would hear loud footsteps banging on the basement stairs. At one point, he heard things in the wall and in the ceiling just banging loud. Once he was sleeping, he heard loud banging on his bedroom window. He went out there the next day just to see a pair of footprints emerge out of thin air, then just disappear. My aunt at some point gave Jonathan a rock light that was supposed to help with paranormal stuff. It worked. It's just he felt something watching him constantly in the night of the month he left. He would also hear banging on the cars, like it was trying to lure him out of the house. He left in April, not due to the ghost, but due to the house being put up for rent again. It's safe to say, Jonathan accidentally passed off that ghost. I was about 5 to 6 years old, so about 2001 to 2002. My paternal grandmother was a sweet woman in her older years, from what I can remember of her, though it's very little. A little background. My grandma had many illnesses as she grew older, and my mother was an RN at the time, and was able to care for her for whenever possible. The nursing facility my grandmother was in was fairly decent to my knowledge. Right around the time I saw her still alive, something felt different to me when I would visit her. I couldn't quite tell her at the time though. Now looking back at it as an adult, I'm fairly certain I could see her soul was slowly disconnecting from her earthly form. It was like looking at an old doll when I visited her for the last time. Right about the time I had turned 6, I was sleeping in my mom's room because I was afraid of the dark. My grandpa was in the living room waiting for my mom to come home from work. Well, around 10 or 11, I feel someone touch my shoulder gently and wake me up. I sat up in bed and looked, utterly confused. The person standing next to the bed was my grandmother, wearing her favorite nightgown with little clouds and flowers all over it. She sat on the bed next to me with a gentle smile on her face. I remember this so vividly to this day. I asked her, "What are you doing here, Grandma? How'd you get past Grandpa?" She replied softly back in what sounded like an echo to me at the time. "I'm going to a better place, sweetheart. I will always be with you no matter what. You will understand when you're older. I love you dearly." I was confused by what she had said back then. She gave me a goodbye kiss on the forehead, stood up from the bed, and faded in gentle white mist. Literally a minute or so later, my mom comes home crying. I could hear her and my grandpa talking softly about my grandmother, though I didn't understand at the time. My mom had come into the bedroom, saw me awake, and was startled. She asked me why I was awake, and I told her that Grandma told me goodbye. I found out years later that my grandmother had passed away in her sleep, and my mom was called into the morgue to identify my grandmother. My grandmother's recorded death time was about 11 to midnight, if I remember correctly. To this day, every now and then I can feel my grandmother nearby. She always wore a rose-scented perfume when she was still alive. It's not often though. If I'm in a really dark place, she comes around to check on me. I miss her dearly, and I wish I had more photos of her when she was alive. Is it mom brain or ghost baby? So this morning I was laying in bed in the process of accepting the day and getting ready, and I heard my bedroom door creak. I looked over and saw a very small dimly lit face come through the door and come up to my side of the bed. I thought it was my son, who's 5 years old. So I rolled over and was about to ask him what he wanted. The whole body was a shadow, and the mouth and nose and eyes were the only parts that were illuminated. He held up a baby doll and one of those magic baby bottles right to the front of his face and just stared at me. At this point, I knew it wasn't my son. And I did what any grown woman who made a 22 on her act in high school would do. I put the covers over my head and rolled to the other side of the bed. At that point, I felt the bed sink down, like the boy demon thing got into bed. So then I thought, okay, maybe it was my kid. And I looked over, and there was nothing. So at this point, I know I have to do the proper investigation and see if my kid was in his room. Sure enough, he is still in his room, tucked away and sound asleep. I also feel it's important to add that my son's door is messed up and he can't fully close it, as it has to be finished shut because the hinges are bent. So, if he had opened the door, I would have heard a noticeable noise, and if he had closed it, it would have slammed. This is also not the first time I have seen a shadow child try to get in my bed. I have about 3 other slightly less interesting stories involving this possible spirit. This happened when I was about 9 years old. For the longest time I thought it was a vivid dream, And then when I was older, my mom told me it had actually happened. I woke up in the middle of the night, and the entire house was bright and lit up in a way that was not normal. No lamps were on. It was as if the light was shining from above and filling the entire space. I remember feeling scared, and I walked into the hallway, calling for my mom. I saw these dark, black, hooded creatures, beings, and they put off this very negative energy. I knew they were coming for me somehow, and they were trying to catch me. I became paralyzed and couldn't move. My mom came into the hallway and screamed, "You are not allowed to be here. You cannot take her. You do not have my permission. You need to leave now." The creature/beings seemed to converse with each other telepathically, as if pondering if they wanted to take my mom instead, but decided against it. Then they just left. They evaporated or disappeared. The house suddenly was dark, as it was the middle of the night. I don't remember what happened after that. I assume my mom put me back to bed, or maybe I slept with her. The next morning I woke up and just had a foggy memory of a creepy dream. I didn't bring it up until years later, and that's when my mom told me that it wasn't a dream, and it had happened. So, that's my ghost story. Dark creatures/beings wanted me for some reason, and I'm very glad I wasn't taken. Let me start the story off with my big first question mark. This all happened not in Navajo areas, not in America, but in Czech Republic. Me and my family traveled to Czech Republic regularly to visit relatives. They live in a small village in the woods. Everyone knows everyone. It's beautiful, and we always go for hour-long walks in the woods. So much that you could basically drop me off anywhere in the forest on my own, and I would be able to find my way back without a problem. Our stay is always about 2 weeks long, and we share a room with the 4 of us. There's not much to do there, but every day that we are there, we go for about 2 walks. Small ones, about half an hour to an hour depending on which side of the forest we enter. Then, when me and my younger brother go to bed, my parents go for one last walk with the dog, and return about an hour later before going to bed. About 8 or 9 years ago, I think, it was a normal summer day. I skipped the morning walk, had breakfast when everyone was walking, and joined them on the walk before dinner. When it was time for me and my brother to go to bed, my parents and grandparents were in the living room. I was around 12 years old, and it's about that annoying age where you don't want to go to bed just yet. At 12, when my parents get ready for bed, my parents check on us before going for their night walk with the dog. I pretended to be asleep, and when the door closed, I pulled out my iPod Touch from under my pillow. My parents would always stay away for about an hour, so I knew how much time I had to play some games before they returned. After what I think was about half an hour, I already heard my parents coming back. This was odd because they like to take their time to enjoy looking at the stars. They never get off the man-made path at night, because the wild boars stay in the woods and they might still have some younglings, so they can be dangerous if you enter their home. So, from the path, you can perfectly see the sky. What was even more odd is that they were not just calmly entering the house, telling the dog good night and getting ready for bed. They slammed the door shut and quickly went into the bedroom. I, who couldn't help but be curious as to why they seemed to be panting and panicking, asked them why they were so early. Instead of getting an answer though, I was told to go to sleep because it was too late. The next day, they didn't mention anything to me about what happened, not until I overheard them talking to my grandparents about a huge bird in the woods. I had to ask them and they seemed hesitant, but finally, they told me what had led them to finish their previous day with such stress. They were walking on the path with the dog, enjoying the warm night. Little before their usual stop, where they would look at the stars with the dog, who normally always runs ahead of them, seemed to not want to walk any further. Instead, he was looking up the hill into the woods. My parents, who didn't think much of it and brushed it off as deer, went ahead and walked further, until they heard a screech from where the dog was looking at. It was very far away, but they stopped walking to hear if they could hear it again. After a few seconds, they did, and the dog started barking. Not very long after, it repeated itself, but it seemed to be a lot closer. The dog, who was normally very brave and protective, started running back home and left my parents weirded out. One more time they heard the screech that my father described as the sound of a very huge owl, and again it sounded like it was closer. That was the moment my parents started running home too. Very quickly it seemed to be catching up to them, but this is where it gets weird. Not only was the noise getting way too loud. It was getting lower, and the screechiness had turned into something more like a scream. Not only that, they started hearing the creature that was making the noise run. They said it sounded like a human running. 2 heavy feet were following them, only at an immense speed. When they finally got out of the wooded area, the running behind them stopped. But my parents kept running, and the screaming of the creature continued. It sounded like a mix of a man and a bird, and they kept hearing it for a while. They ran all the way home, knowing that they weren't being followed anymore, but they wanted to get home as soon as possible. My father is a brave man, and even though they never had this experience again, he still doesn't go to that part of the woods at night anymore. Hearing him tell me the story and seeing the fear in his eyes still haunts me. I believe in skinwalkers, but I don't know what to make out of this. Do skinwalkers exist outside of America? Can they make the sound of any animal? This will probably be a mystery for the rest of my life, but I still cannot let it go. And that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please let me know which one was your favorite. Please leave a like and a comment. I do enjoy reading your comments. It actually makes my day. But if you'd like me to do more of these videos, or you have any specific ones, please let me know down below. In the description there is a Patreon link if you want to support the channel for like $5 a month. It's not a big deal. There's no like life-threatening thing if you don't want to. I hope you guys enjoy your day, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.